You open your fridge tonight. Salmon, tuna, maybe cod. Same 5 or 6 fish over and over. It feels like variety. It is not. Because right now, in the ocean beneath you, there are more than 20,000 known species of fish. 20,000! And you have tasted maybe 5. Most people assume it is because those other fish taste bad. That is not quite right. The real reason is stranger and darker. Some of it is written into the flesh of the fish itself. Some of it is written into your own body. And by the end of this, you will never look at a seafood counter the same way again. Let's start with the obvious question. Why don't we eat more of what's down there? The first answer is chemistry. Some fish carry poison, and they don't even make it themselves. Take the barracuda, or certain reef fish in tropical waters. They eat smaller fish. Those smaller fish eat algae, and some of that algae carries a toxin called ciguatoxin. It moves up the chain. Bigger fish eat more of the poisoned smaller fish. The toxin concentrates. This is called biomagnification. The higher up the food chain a fish sits, the more poison it can be carrying. Japanese researcher Takeshi Yasumoto spent years in the 1970s and 80s tracing this exact toxin through reef ecosystems. He found something unsettling. Cooking does not destroy it. Freezing does not destroy it. You can grill it, boil it, fry it. The poison survives. Imagine a fisherman on a Pacific island generations ago. He catches a big, healthy-looking reef fish. No smell, no visible sign of anything wrong. His family eats well that night. By morning, something is wrong with all of them. Their mouths go numb. Hot water feels ice cold on their skin. Cold water feels like fire. Some victims report that sensation lingering for months. Entire island communities learned through trial and painful error which reef fish to avoid, long before anyone had a word for the toxin. So an entire category of fish gets quietly removed from your plate before you even know it existed. But that's only one piece of the story. Here's what's even stranger. Go deeper. Go past where sunlight reaches. Down there, fish evolve a strange survival trick. Sharks, rays, and many deep-sea species keep high levels of urea in their own flesh. It helps balance pressure and salt in their bodies. It also means their meat can smell like ammonia, like a cleaning product. Left untreated, some of these fish become almost inedible within hours of being caught. Not poisonous, just repulsive. Your brain is wired by evolution to associate that smell with decay, with something that will make you sick, so you reject it instantly, without ever tasting it. Even something as strange looking as the oarfish, a massive ribbon-like creature that sometimes washes ashore, has been treated for centuries as an omen rather than a meal. Fishermen in parts of Japan historically called it the messenger from the sea god's palace, something to fear, not fry. That single chemical quirk, combined with pure appearance, has kept dozens of deep-sea species off dinner tables for centuries. But even that isn't the whole answer, because plenty of fish are perfectly safe to eat, and we still don't eat them. So what's really going on? Here's the uncomfortable part. A lot of what ends up on your plate was never actually chosen by you. It was chosen for you, decades ago, by an industry. In the mid-1900s, commercial fishing fleets built entire supply chains around just a handful of species. Cod, tuna, salmon, herring. Why those? Because they moved in large, predictable schools. Because they could survive the trip from ocean to processing plant without falling apart. Because their bones and shape made filleting fast and cheap at scale. There was also a colder, more practical reason. Early refrigeration and freezing technology in the 20th century was expensive and limited. Companies needed fish that could be caught in bulk, frozen in bulk, and sold in bulk. One shape, one size, one process. A slippery, oddly shaped, low-yield fish simply wasn't worth the machinery. So the machinery decided the menu. Fish that swim alone or live in small, unpredictable numbers were never worth the cost of catching them commercially. Marine biologist Daniel Pauly has spent decades studying this pattern. He calls part of it fishing down the food web, meaning we hunted the big, easy, profitable species first, then kept hunting them, generation after generation, until stocks collapsed. A landmark study by researchers Ransom Myers and Boris Worm in 2003 estimated that industrial fishing had wiped out roughly 90% of large predatory fish populations since the mid-20th century. 90% gone. And still, instead of diversifying into the thousands of untouched species swimming right below the surface, the industry doubled down on farming the same few winners. Salmon farms, tilapia farms, shrimp farms. Same handful of names, mass-produced, shipped worldwide. Meanwhile, an entire ocean of alternatives sits almost completely ignored. But there's a second reason, and it's not about the ocean at all. It's about you. Your brain has strict rules about what counts as food. Psychologist Pauly Rozin spent years studying disgust, and one thing he found again and again, humans don't just reject things that are dangerous. We reject things that look wrong. A fish with too many spines, a fish with strange eyes, or an unfamiliar shape, a fish that looks nothing like the salmon-shaped template your brain quietly built from childhood. Take the blobfish. Perfectly edible in theory, but almost nobody wants it on their plate because it triggers an instinctive no before a single fact is even considered. This is not really about taste. It's about pattern recognition, built over a lifetime of only ever seeing 5 or 6 acceptable fish shapes on menus and in supermarkets. You were never given the full menu. You were given a narrowed one, and your brain adapted to think that was the whole ocean. So here's what's actually happening every time you eat fish. You're not really tasting the ocean. You're tasting a business decision made generations before you were born. Here's the twist, though. That template can change. 50 years ago, raw fish on a plate would have disgusted most Western diners outright. Then sushi arrived, marketed carefully, presented beautifully, stripped of anything that looked too fishy, and an entire culture's disgust threshold quietly shifted within a single generation. Which means the ocean of fish you refuse to eat isn't fixed, it was built, and anything built can be rebuilt. You were never given the full menu. You were given a narrowed one, and your brain adapted to think that was the whole ocean. So here's what's actually happening every time you eat fish. You're not really tasting the ocean. You're tasting a business decision made generations before you were born. You're tasting a poison avoidance instinct written into your biology, and you're tasting a disgust reflex trained by supermarkets, not by nature. 3 separate forces, chemistry, industry, and psychology, quietly agreed to shrink an entire ocean down to a handful of shapes on a plate. And most people go their whole lives never noticing the other 20,000 possibilities swimming past, completely untouched. Think about that the next time you order the same fish again. It's not really a choice, it's an inheritance, one you never signed up for and rarely question. The ocean offered you thousands of options. Somewhere along the way, something decided for you which ones counted.